as an adolescent, you've got people saying, don't do stuff. And then you're like, well, I'll show you and I'll do it anyway. You know what I mean? And then now in my late 40s, I feel like I've got, when I'm on a long run on Sunday and I've got my body and my mind telling me like, you should stop, you should turn around, you should go home, you can't do this or whatever. It's like, I feel like I'm still raging against the machine, but now I'm the machine. I think that's one of the biggest parts of the answer that I can give you is that there's little relief in sight. And so it's one of those things where like the cavalry ain't coming. And so I got to be there. I have things that I need to take care of. And sometimes it's too much. But if I can go do this stuff, then I can turn around and go, look what you just did. You can handle anything right now.
Running is a strange thing. Some people find it on the sidewalk at sunrise. Some find it deep in the mountains, chasing daylight. And some of us find it when life feels heavy, and running is the only thing that makes sense. For some, it starts with a 5K. For others, it's a marathon. And for a few, it's 100 miles that changes everything. But somewhere between the first step and the finish line, something happens. Running stops being about pace, or distance, or medals. It becomes about purpose. I'm your host, Ryan Head, and this is Reimagine Running, the podcast dedicated to talking about why we run. Each episode, we'll sit down with runners from every background, trail runners, road runners, beginners, veterans, and talk about their journey. Not just where they've run, but why they run. Because for many of us, running didn't just change our fitness. It helped us find clarity, healing, discipline, hope, and sometimes even ourselves. Whether your why was born on a short loop around the block or somewhere deep inside a long, lonely mile, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Reimagine Running. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Reimagine Running, the podcast talking about your why and why you do any of this, why you do all this running, why it's important to you. I am excited. This episode today is going to be one for the books. I'm excited for the guest that I have on. He is someone who, to me, is one of the best people in the Ogden area. And he's just someone who really leads by example. You know, when I think to myself about people out there who are trying their best, who they're finding their opportunities to do running when possible, this is my guest. Not only that, he is a devoted dad. He is someone who just does amazing stuff for his family. You know, we're going to dive into a little bit of that today, but you're going to hear about some crazy stuff, not only, with regard to his family, but how no matter what happens, he still goes out and gets his runs in. He still goes out and knocks out a self-supported race. I don't want to give it away yet. He's been on other podcasts. He's talked about this story. I'm excited for him to tell me this story so you guys can all hear it. It is just awesome. So I'm excited to have Dustin Booker join me today for this episode. Before we get into it with Dustin, I want to emphasize my premier sponsor, Fleet Feet, who is amazing. Fleet Feet over there in Ogden and Layton. They will get you taken care of if you have any shoe needs, any nutrition needs, any gear needs. Go see them. They'll get you taken care of. So excited to have them on board with me as we continue to roll this podcast out. So that being said, Dustin Booker, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, dude. Thanks for having me on, man.
Awesome. Well, it looks like you've got a friend there with you, which is awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm loving it. That's awesome. You got your buddy there, which is so cool. Dude, I was able to give a little bit of an intro of you, but why don't you take a few minutes and tell people a little bit more about you? And as I always kind of joke, you don't need to tell anything about running. I know you're also into other forms of exercise. You do some other cool stuff, but why don't you take a few minutes and tell everybody more about you?
All right, man. Yeah, thanks again for having me on. I have really enjoyed your podcast, man. I've listening to all the guests and getting inspiration and getting to know some people that I already know, but getting to know them better. I think it's very cool.
Yeah.
So, I am a father of 3 and husband to the lovely Mrs. Booker, and then we got our little pit bull Piggy. I work in aerospace as a programmer, and then I'm an MMA coach and a kids karate teacher. And yeah, dude, it's just family and fun, man.
That's
And all the
awesome.
madness that comes with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I love it. I know you're a busy man. I always love seeing your stuff you post on social media. I think it's so cool to see you doing stuff with, like you said, MMA stuff. I know, and we'll get to this. The very first time I actually really met you in person was at a race. But I remember after that, we kind of started following each other, and I was like, this dude's like way more into being at the gym. It was crazy to like see all this stuff about you. And then I don't know, ever since then, dude, you have just been like on this trajectory of just crushing it with running. And I think that's what's really cool about you and why I think your story is just so inspiring. So, let's hop into it, man. I am
Let's go.
excited. Why don't you tell people, let's talk about for a minute, when did running become important to you, or when did it first enter your life, if you will?
I've ran my whole life. I grew up in the kind of the foothills of Farmington there. So like Farmington Canyon was my backyard. So just got
Nice.
to go run and like do all sorts of stuff. And like um I got involved in martial arts when I was like 6. And so for every belt test we would have to run for that. We'd have to go run like 3 miles and then come back and do our belt test or whatever. And then kind of inspired by like the Rocky movies and stuff like that. Like running was just always a part of training for martial arts. I was heavily into competition for a lot of years, and so that's just what you did is part of training. You went running, and but then man, there's definitely some gaps in there and a lot of dumb decisions, and then I would always kind of come back to it and uh would do races here and there. And but yeah, it's always running. Up until probably about 5 years ago, running has always been a part of my life, but it's always kind of been in the background. Like it hasn't been like a real solid part, and I'm sure we'll get into all that.
So when like let's dive into that a little bit. When did running start to take, not be on the back burner? Because no, you said that's kind of like you said, it's always been there. And I honestly feel the exact same way as you. Like I remember, when I was a teenager, I was actually good at it. I don't think I was great. I was just good. I could run the mile pretty fast. I could, do almost a, sub 5 minute mile and loved doing it. But I was more of a football guy. I was more of a baseball guy. I love basketball. That was my jam. I always like to go out for a mile or two. I was like, dude, this is just fun. But it's funny now when I think back about it. I'm like, dude, you were actually pretty good at this. And if you hadn't hurt your knees, what could you have done? It's okay. That's life, right? Like you said, we make decisions. We do dumb things sometimes, and that's how life goes. And you just say, well, I'll move forward. Like you just go forward. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's my question is when did it like turn into what it is now with you? Because, right, like I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but like so many of us in the community see what you do every week. And we're like, what the freak is going on? And it's cool. It's so cool. Like, please know that. It's so cool. But I'm not going to lie. The first couple of times I saw you doing this, I'm like, that dude's going to get hurt. But then you continue to do it. And I'm like, this is just the norm now with this guy. This is cool. So yeah. So when did it start to kind of become more than just being on the back burner for you?
So the stuff that you're talking about, I've kind of always done. Like I remember being a younger teenager and like 12, 13 or whatever, and putting on my Walkman, just throwing on my headphones, and it was either like the Rocky Four or the Last of the Mohicans soundtrack, and just running.
Mhm.
And I would go from like Fruit Heights, and I would end up in like Bountiful, and I'd have to call my parents, be like, I messed up. I'd have to go to like Denny's, be like, can I use your phone, please? And be like, I messed up. Like I
Love
ran
it.
way too far, and like I can't get back. I'm shaky, and so like I would always do kind of like dumb stuff like that, right? Like I think this was a week after. Do you remember the Bear Gutsman?
Oh yeah. Fully
Okay,
from
so
very
so
familiar with that.
yeah, so like a week after my second degree black belt test, right? I'm 16 years old, and a group of friends called me up and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go do this crazy race. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I'm just completely wrecked from this crazy belt test, and so we went to the DI and got these ridiculous running outfits. Like somehow we all found matching. They were like baby blue, like John Stockton size shorts with
Mhm.
matching tank tops and like gold trim. They were so ridiculous, but we all ended up with the same running outfits. And anyway, we show up to this thing. I have no idea what this is. They're just like, yeah, you just go run up a mountain. I'm like, let's go run up a mountain. And so we showed up the next day, and you run all the way up the mountain there in Fruit Heights and end up at Francis Peak, and then you go like I don't know, half a mile down, and we get to the end, and one of the race officials, we see the table with like there's no aid stations, there's nothing like that, and we are so like underprepared for this thing. One of our friends
Yeah.
got lost like somewhere in the scrub oak, and so we end up finishing this thing, and you have to have somebody come up and get you and drive you back down. We have no idea about any of this, but we see the big table with like all the fruit, and we're like, oh yes, dude, like we scored. And so we go over and start macking. The officials comes over and they're like, "Where's your bib?" And like I'm like, "Not a baby. What are you talking about?" And they're like, "No, dude, like where's your number?" And we're like,
Yeah.
I have no idea. And he's like, if you didn't register for this race, you can't have any of this food. And we absolutely like scalped our way into this race and had no idea we just thought there were a bunch of crazy people like running up a mountain and like there was fruit at the end. We were like, oh, this is great. We had no idea. So that was kind of my introduction into trail racing. But mid late 30s, I would just go on like walkabouts, just like throw in my headphones and find a good walking stick and walk all over Ogden, end up at like a bar or something like that, and hang out for a bit, and then just like until it was dark, just go. Um, there was always kind of that like desire just to go like wander, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so 16 years ago, my little sister went through 2 bouts of thyroid cancer, and then
Mm.
she beat both of those, and then had to get a is it a shunt? Her brain was swelling. It wouldn't absorb the fluid in her
Mhm.
brain, and so it was like pushing her eyes out. She's already been through so much, right? Had to go through like radiation, get her thyroid moved, like the whole thing, and now she's dealing with this, like totally unrelated. So she has to get this apparatus in her brain with this tube going down to her stomach, and just like gnarly. She has gnarly scars now and stuff. And she hits me up one day, and she goes, "I want to do something crazy that like celebrates being alive. I think I'm gonna run a marathon." And I was like, "You're
Let's
nuts,
go.
dude. Count me in."
Yeah.
Like, and so we registered for the Portland Marathon because that's where she lives. And so I started training for this thing, and I think I had done, I think, a couple halves up to this point, but so I'm like, okay, let's do a marathon. And so started training for this thing, got like halfway through the training block, and then a bunch of stuff fell through, and it was looking like I wasn't going to be able to go up. And so my dad last minute, because he was a big runner before he had to stop running
Mhm.
those kind of distances. But like last minute, like week of, he's like, "Hey, so I'm gonna go up and run this thing with your sister, and I'm gonna drive up. Like, do you still want to go?"
Mhm.
So we cruise up to Portland and show up to the starting line, and it is a torrential downpour, dude. It is your typical Pacific Northwest weather out of nowhere, and it literally came out of nowhere. And like the whole crew is going around passing out boxes full of trash bags to everybody because nobody's prepared for this. Like everybody's feet are already soaked. So we start on this right after mile 13. I turned my dad and my sister, and I went, "This is so cool. This is the furthest I've ever ran before." Four eyes kind of turn slowly, and they look at me and they're like, "This is going to be a really long day." And I was like, "No, no, no. I
Yeah.
feel great right now." And my dad's like, "Okay." So anyway, that was one of the most awful experiences of my life. I think it was like 6.5 hours. Like
Yeah.
my knee popped. Like it was so I just shuffled and cried my way through this thing. And yeah, I really do think it was like 6.5 hours that I finished this thing. And I was
Yeah.
like, cool. Well, we wanted to do something crazy for to celebrate being alive, and we have done it now, and I'll never do that again. Famous last words as a distance runner.
Yeah.
So awesome experience. I mean, absolutely amazing experience. But anyway, came home, and it was, I think, the next year, a friend of mine died. So he died, and I think it was like a couple days after that, a good friend of mine put up a thing saying, "Hey, I'm supposed to run this marathon up in Logan, but I can't anymore. Does anybody want this?" And
Mhm.
I felt like so helpless with the death of my buddy that it kind of went back to the same thing as my sister battling cancer and everything like that. I was like, I want to do something crazy just to feel alive. And so I hit him up and I was like, dude, I'll take it. And I wasn't running at all, like no training at all going into this, and went up to Logan and ran this thing. And every time you talk about your knee popping,
Mhm.
I kind of grin because I'm like, I know what you're talking about because I was maybe 3 miles in and it popped, and I had to ask one of the aid stations for some tape, and I kind of taped it back in place. And I'm guessing that that was probably another 6 hour plus finish, and
Mhm.
just cried my eyes out the entire way. And
Yeah.
it was just awful. And once again said I will never do that again.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so this is all like 2010 and 2011, I think.
No, it's just funny because I wanted to just comment on a couple of those races that you've done. Just for our listeners, the Bare Gutsman is essentially it is almost the exact same course, or the start of the Wasatch 100. It is a mean start to any race, and for those who want to do it, the Bear Guts Men, it really is the majority of the race is just climbing up what's called Bear Canyon, as Dustin had mentioned in Fruit Heights, and it's like 4,500 feet over like 3+ miles, and it can wreck like a person. And so for him to do that and then like, okay, let's just keep going. I think it's impressive because I know how fun that canyon is. And every time I've done it, I'm like, dude, I don't want to do this. But then I love hearing your stories about you running for people. And I know we'll continue to, we'll get to that point here in a minute and we'll continue to go down that path. But I love that you're like, I just wanted to celebrate, my sister's life. Let's go do something crazy. Let's do something awesome. And I love that your whole family like gets involved in it because that's what I've seen from you. I've seen that your dad gets involved. It's cool to see him running with you. And like you said, sometimes it's not about the pace, it's more about the experience. And that's kind of been my story. That's like one of those things that I try to tell people is I'm like, sometimes it's not really so much about what the whole story is or how fast you're doing it, but more the story, what you're doing, why you're doing it. I sometimes think that's more important. So I love it, man. I think that's so, so cool. All right. So you're talking about the early 20s. What happened after that, man?
Okay. So my dad was he got into marathons at like a super late age. Like, wasn't doing this stuff in his 20s and 30s.
Mhm.
We're talking more 50s and 60s. And would just, he's running Ogden, and he had a couple of friends that he would go up in your hood up by like Fernwood, and they would
Mhm.
go do these trail runs every Saturday, and that was their thing. They would do 13, 18 miles, whatever. And I remember just hearing about this. Like, you're insane, dude. This is so I love that you have this. I think it's so cool. And
Mhm.
then they would go do different marathons around, all around Utah and stuff. And he was good. Like he went out and started doing some of the trail races out on Antelope. Started with the 25K, and then that's how he knew that something was going on, because he had no gas in the tank. He was
Yeah.
really struggling with energy, and so went in and got checked out and found out that he has leukemia. And so the doctor told him, like, you need to stop running because that's hurting you. Like, I love that you have this. I know that this is a good, positive, healthy thing, but it's actually hurting you more than it's helping you. So this is something
Mm.
that you need to stop. And so, like, his passion, his drive got taken away from him very prematurely. But he had to, do what you got to do to take care of your family. And
Yeah.
so fast forward to 2020, and I'm at work, and my job is insane. My job is just crazy. There's no room for error. There's very little thanks. Like, I got to be on point constantly, right? And so I feel like a lot of health issues come up. If you get too stressed out, that stuff will start to kind of manifest itself physically.
Mhm.
So one day I'm at work, and I get this pain right in my sternum, and then it kind of radiates up to my shoulder, and I was like, oh no. And then, like, I can only sit in a certain position at my desk, or I am in so much pain. And so I finally go to the ER, and I'm I call it my fossil position because I look like I have to lay kind of in a letter C but backwards.
Hmm.
That's the only comfortable position I can be in because I'm just writhing with pain. They hit me with morphine. That's not doing a thing. Did a bunch of tests, and this, came back like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 hours later. And the doctor walks in and he goes, "You're a drinker." And I went, "I don't see how that's relevant, but yeah, I'm right then, I'm in so much pain. Okay, what does that have to do with anything?" And he goes, "Okay, so your pancreas exploded. I need you to understand how serious I am when I tell you right now that you need to stop drinking or it's going to kill you. Okay. You got lucky this time, but you're gambling with this. So you need to stop now." And I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't ready for that. At the time, I'm in a punk band. Everything that I do, it's not like drinking base, but drinking is everywhere of
Yeah.
like everything that I do. It's just, whiskey and Pabst Blue Ribbon just go hand in hand with everything that I do. And
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that news. And so he goes, "Yeah, you have chronic pancreatitis. This is what you need to do to take care of it. And this is number one. You need to quit drinking like immediately. Like you're done yesterday." And
Hmm.
so first thing that pops through my head is I'm not going to make my kids fatherless over PBR. I was like, okay, I guess I'm done drinking. And
Hmm.
so this was 6 years ago yesterday, dude. So
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you so much, man. So all this is so get this. So doctor tells me stop drinking. Okay. Okay, I have quit drinking. I can't remember how long. It was days later, and then I finally go back to work and we all get these notifications that we are being put on furlough because the pandemic hits.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we're on furlough. So I'm still getting paid, but I
Hmm.
don't have to go to work. And now I'm home. I'm home and I'm just with free time and money. And I'm just like, no, like I'm gonna do some dumb shit. Like I really need to figure out how to handle this. And so I really got into fishing.
Nice.
And I would go fishing from sun up till sundown every day, dude. Like I would go down to the Riverdale Parkway and just walk the river for miles and hours, dude. Like I would just fish and fish and fish, and that was my substitute addiction. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so one thing that I realized as I'm out fishing, it's starting to get dark, or I've been out there for like no joke, dude, like 6, 7 hours, something like that, and and I would just have like this voice in the back of my head, just like one more fish, just one. Dude, pull out one more trout and then we'll go home. And sometimes that would lead into the nighttime, dude. And I still don't have a fish. I'm like, I have to go home now. And so it was during this time that I realized what an addictive personality I have, because the like I am very much a holic, but the
Hmm.
prefix changes. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like it was an
Yep.
alcoholic before and now it's a fishaholic. And because
Yep.
back then it was always just, okay, just one more shot and then I'll go to bed. And now
Yep.
it's one more fish and then I'll go to bed. And then I'll go home. And uh so that's when the wheels really started turning. Like you've got some stuff that you need to come to grips with. You've got some stuff that you need to start working through. And so right about that time, um, and I don't even remember what sparked this. I signed up for, it was a half marathon. It was the Morgan. It was the Morgan half marathon, and this was just.
Nice.
I think I signed up for it based on. I remember looking on this, be like, okay, give me something that's a good 2, 3 months out. Let me get ready for this thing, and
Hmm.
so started training for this thing, and just from the ground up, dude, doing my 1 mile, take a rest day, doing my 2 miles, take a rest day. And dude, I printed out my training block and I put it on the fridge, and I asked middle spawn, I was like, hey dude, you need to help me to stay on top of this. Like you're my coach. Like I need to check off all these boxes every day or I'm not going to be able to run this race, right? And so I trained through it and went and ran the race, and at about mile like 9 or 10, knee pop, and same thing, limped my way back in. I think I finished at like 2:30 or something like that, which is awesome for a half marathon when I haven't done a
Yeah.
thing with that for so long. I was so happy, but again, said to my, I'm never doing that again. That was dumb, whatever. It was shortly after this that a dear friend of mine, I was working on a Saturday, and a dear friend of mine was running the Ogden Full, and he lives way down far south, and his family couldn't be up here for it. And I was like, the lab is right up the street. I'm like, I'm gonna go surprise him. So I shot down, and I've been at that finish line at Ogden so many times, cheering my father on, and various friends and stuff like that. And so I go down, and he crosses the finish line. I was, bro, and he was like, hey, tell it meant a whole lot to him, and it was so cool because now we're in our 40s, right? And now it's
Yeah.
so cool to see him. He was one of my dearest martial, like he was my best friend in martial arts and in life, and like we did everything together. We fought against each other. We competed against each other. We were locker partners in junior high. And so to see him do this, like see him crossing a marathon, oh my gosh, I was so proud of him. And so we're over sitting on the grass after, and just talking, and he's like, do you think you'll ever do one again? I was like, no, dude, absolutely not. I'm totally done with this.
Yeah.
And he goes, what's stopping you? And I don't know why. I have no, like, there is a lot of truth to this, but my reasoning that I said right then is, dude, I got family stuff that I got to worry about, man. I can't afford to throw down $100 to go, to go run a race right now or whatever. And so, because I said, when's your next one? And he said, I'm doing the Antelope Island marathon.
Hmm.
It wasn't the trail race, but the road one out there. And he said, I'm going to be
Yep.
doing this one here coming up. And I was like, dude, I am totally out there to cheer you on. I think that's awesome. So we have this conversation, it's a money thing, whatever. And so he goes to leave, I go to leave. And about 30 minutes later, I get a notification that says, you're signed up for the Antelope Marathon. And man, and like, I'm not going to tell him no, right?
Yeah.
And so I get home, and I was like, kind of gather the family together, and I was like, okay, so here's the thing. And they're just like, I guess you're doing a marathon. I was like, damn it. So
Yeah.
I'm back and I really want to do this right, because I have never had a full training block up to this point, right? So this was the fall of 21, I think. So I want to represent well. I want to show up and do this well, because he has opened this door for me, and
Mhm.
and I don't want to show up and be like, haha, I'm not prepared, and you paid for this, and this is gonna suck, and here we go again. And
Yeah.
so I trained well for this thing. I really printed up my training block, put it on the fridge. Middle Spawn helped me stay accountable for it again.
Hmm.
Got up early before work, would go do my runs, and went out and had a really good race. I think we finished in like 4:30 or something like that. And it was hilly, dude. It was gnarly. And so finished that, and then so we did that. I was super happy about it. And then he did it again. I think he did it with Ogden. I think it was on the way home from that. He signed me up for another one. I was like, you're killing me, Smalls. Like, I don't want to do this, man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I have had, since I was 13 years old, I have had knee, hip, and ankle problems, right? And through my adult years, I'm drinking. I've got nicotine coursing through my veins. So I quit drinking in 2020, and I'm still doing some of this stuff, like the running and things like that, but my knees are still hurting, right? And I figure it's just because of all the martial arts. It's all, just years of abuse that I've put my body through. And so every year I would quit something new. So 2020, I quit alcohol, and then 2021, I quit smoking cigarettes, and then 2022, I think I quit the, vaping or the Zyn pouches, but I would just cut out something every year, and all of a sudden I'm feeling better and better. Okay. And I
Mhm.
can run further and further, and my knees don't hurt, and my hips don't hurt, my ankles don't hurt. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? Like, I've got
Yeah.
superpowers, right?
Yep.
And so then the question mark pops up. How far can I take this? Like, what can I do with this? Right.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I realized during all of this is everything that I have done to deal with life up to this point has been detrimental in one way or another, whether it's drinking. Like, you hear it all the time. You get home on a Friday night and be like, I just had, just an awful week, and I absolutely deserve to get wrecked right now. And you do
Yep.
it all weekend long. Okay. Not
Yep.
thinking about like what you're missing out on because I earned this, right?
Yep.
I deserve this. And
Yep.
then you wake up Monday absolutely feeling like garbage. And then you go back and you do it again, right?
Yep.
And so, whether it was like a cigarette break, I need a break from work right now. I just need to step outside for a few minutes and think this through or, whatever it is. But everything that I was doing was on the negative side of that spectrum. Okay. So
Mhm.
now all of a sudden, everything that I'm doing is more positive and building. Okay. And I haven't experienced it on this end since I was a kid. Okay. Since going and doing these crazy runs as like a 13-year-old. And
Yeah.
so, I would start going up and exploring our trails up here in Ogden. When I was locked in and training for a road marathon, I would miss that. I would miss being up in the hills like that.
Yeah.
I discovered that that was where I really wanted to be, but I was doing the work that I needed to show up for these road marathons and do these well.
Mhm.
Uh, and so after the last, I ran Ogden and that went well. And then shortly after that, I said, I'm just solely going to do trails now.
Mhm.
And so that's where I want to be. Let's go do that instead. And so I would go up and start doing all these trail runs and further. And then I jumped on kind of taking dad's lead. Let's go do a trail race. And so thinking about dad and his legacy and everything that he did, I was like, I'm going to go do 25K that dad would do out on Antelope Island. And, um, my father has always been on this huge pedestal. It's been this unreachable hero, right?
Mhm.
And so I was like, no, if I can go do this, I feel like this parallelism to my father that I've never felt before. If I can go do this same thing that he did, if I can
Mhm.
go run the same trail that he did, I was like, yeah, let's go do this. Trained up on the trails, went and did this 25K, got my mug, and he was there at the finish line. And oh my gosh, dude, what a special experience
That's awesome.
to feel like the torch wasn't being passed, and I never felt like I had to like walk in his footsteps or in his shoes or anything like that, but all of a sudden I felt like I was walking beside him,
That's cool.
and I could just associate with so much that I don't feel like I really understood about the man before.
Y
Well, so, did that and really enjoyed it. And I said, I want to do the 50K. And he was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like now you're getting into crazy territory. And I was like, I've done a handful of marathons. I'm sure it'll be fine. Right.
Yeah.
And so it was at that point that I said, let's see what else there is around here as far as
Yeah.
trail races. And so I jumped on, and all this is about to make you smile because I love this part of the story. I jumped on and I signed up for what's the on Skyline? What's the lowest distance? Is it the 25K or the half
Yeah.
or something like that?
Yeah, it's the
So I
half, yeah.
I jumped on and I signed up for the half. And then it was probably 2 or 3 weeks after that, it's just plaguing me. Like I've got this voice going, it's not gonna be enough.
Yep.
And I was like, man. So I jumped back on and I upped it to the marathon.
Mhm.
And that same voice was still on there. It's like, it's not going to be enough. I know this. And so I think it was maybe 2 days later, and I jumped back on and I upped it to the 55K. And I have done nowhere near the elevation that,
Yep.
because what is it, about 7,500 feet for the
Yep.
55K? It's like, I think it's
It's like
about
7. Yeah, it's like 7 or 8, yeah.
seven and some change. So I think it was kind of like active addiction awareness.
Mhm.
I think I knew that it wasn't it like if I went and did the half, I knew I would finish that and be like, you're gonna want more than that. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? You want to drink till that bottle's done. You want to catch that last fish. You want to go like now that your body can do these things, you're gonna want to go, go, go. So I trained really hard for that race. I did the back to back. Still had no idea at this point about nutrition or hydration. You're just
Mhm.
I know that you're supposed to eat some stuff and you're supposed to drink some stuff, but had no idea about like the specific science of it. And so race day comes, and this is where I meet my good friend Ryan Head.
Yep. Yep. I re I was just gonna say, it's funny because, leading up to this, hearing your story, it makes so much more sense about who you are and why you do the things that you do. It's been cool to hear, you talking about kind of like you said, if you will, like the passing of the torch between you and your dad. But in that same sense too, one thing that I've really loved, and I know we'll get to talking about your why here soon enough, and I think if you read between the lines, you're gonna people, our audience, if you're listening to this, you're starting to read between the lines of what his why is. But it's so cool to see how much your family is involved in what you do. And I think that just it's a beautiful thing, right? Because I think family, that's just one root, if you will, of a why for so many people. One thing that I really appreciate that you touched on as well is just the addiction stuff, and I get where you're coming from there. Addiction is what so many of us deal with in life, and I appreciate you just being willing to share it, but talking more about it because I've already had multiple guests on who have talked about similar things and how they wasted, sorry, that's not the right word, but they spent a lot of their life, like you said, they get home on a Friday and they're like, I'm drinking until Sunday night, Monday morning, and that's my life. And I mean, not that I was in that boat, but I remember being about 85 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I accepted my fate that I was going to be overweight and that I wasn't going to accomplish much in my life. I was okay with that. I had accepted that fate about 15-ish years ago. And I remember telling myself, like, I accepted that. And I thought, that's such a dumb mentality that I have this. I shouldn't feel this way. I should be telling myself, no, you're going to push through. You're going to do stuff. But I remember it being so hard to be able to make that decision for myself. But it's been cool to hear other people kind of go through the same experience because it is tough. It's tough when you're like, okay, I'm going to do something completely different that I haven't experienced before. So I love that you've shared that, man. Take us to Skyline 55K. I remember this. I
Dude,
remember this race very well with you. So go ahead, tell. I want to hear this. This is gonna be great.
man, oh, dude, I learned so much that day. I screwed up so bad. It was awesome. So just right out of the gate, going up that backside of North Fork there, and like I had been up to Benny, and I had been to Lewis, and those just killed me, dude, by themselves. I'm like, how am I supposed to do this back to back? And dude, I have to tell this story real quick. I remember my first time going up to Benny, which is a beautiful peak here in Ogden. And it's from the North Ogden Divide. It's like 16 miles and like I think like 4,000 feet of climb, something like
Mhm,
round trip. And so my first time going up there, I was like, I have to go see what this is about. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I have to go see what this is about. And so I start going up, and there's still like the spring trails going up. There's still snow on the backside,
mhm,
and it's super windy, and you're on this crazy ridge line, and I'm mostly blind in one of my eyes, so I don't have very good depth perception, and so sometimes I can't tell if something is a foot in front of me or 1,000 feet in front of me. And so when you're up
mhm,
that high, the world starts spinning, right? And you're up there by yourself, and it's like I hit the panic button so bad, and I hear these voices behind me. Like I'm right at the saddle of Ben Lomond. I've made it to that point, and there's snow going all the way up to the top. And
mhm,
I look up, and and these two women are coming down with poles and just mobbing it, dude. And it's Tara Warren and Jenny Horowitz, right? They're mobbing down, just absolute local legends, dude. And so they're coming down, and like I stand up out of my panic attack. I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? And I will never forget this dude. I said, so did you guys make it to the top? And I'll never forget this dude. Like, Tara was so kind with this dude. She just kind of cocked her head, like, yeah, we did, and I was like, man, that's awesome, dude. And they were so encouraging. Anyway, I end up making it up to the top, and that definitely sparks. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did it, dude. I can't believe I'm up here, because you're looking at like three different valleys below you, and and
Mhm.
mob down. So back to Skyline. So we're going up the backside right there. We make it to the saddle, go up to, and I think you and I were within each other's vicinity like the entire race, dude. I think we
Mhm.
were right next to each other like for most of it.
Mhm.
And I remember, especially at Lewis, okay, we go up, we hit Ben Lomond Peak, got our stickers up there, mob back down, went across the ridge line, went down to the divide, and there was that awesome aid station right there. And then we started going up Lewis, and then it was at the aid station at the top of Lewis, where this is where my most vivid memories of you are, because this made me laugh so hard because I listened to yours and Jen's episode, and you guys were talking about this, and you guys were talking about like what a grumpy mood you were in, and I was like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? Like you were, I couldn't believe how positive and just how stoked you were. Like I gained so much stoke and so much motivation. Like and I have no idea who you are or what you've done or what you've accomplished, or like I have no idea your background. As far as I'm concerned, you're just another crazy dude just like me that's doing this for your very first time, and we're just pushing each other like, yeah, dude, like awesome, you look great. Like I lost count of how many times you said that, dude, you look awesome, you look great. And I'm like, hell yeah, I could do anything right now. Went down to Lewis and came back, and then started going down the switchbacks there, and again listening to the previous episodes about those switchbacks. Everything was pretty comfortable up until that point,
Yeah.
and I had absolutely dropped the ball on nutrition. I remember grabbing like handfuls of gummy bears, and it had gotten so hot that they just kind of like congealed into this like gel at that point. I'm like, oh, it's just like a goo, no biggie. And had no idea about like sodium intake or carb intake or anything like that. Like at that point in the game, I was like, I think my plan was I have to put down 300 calories an hour, because that's what I had heard on like a podcast or read somewhere or whatever. Got to put down
Mhm.
300 calories an hour. And I didn't know at the time that 300 calories of protein and fat is a lot different than 300 calories of carbs, and so I'm wrecked coming down those switchbacks, and the heat is radiating off the dirt
Mhm.
road at this point, and just going right up your shorts, man. I mean, you are cooking in a convection oven, and the
Yep.
only way to cool down is to keep going. If you stopped and walked, you were roasting, dude. You were in a 7-Eleven oven with the taquitos just baking,
Yep.
and so I have nothing left in the tank at that point, but I've got to keep running or I'm gonna
Yep.
ignite on fire. So, and then you guys were talking about like one of these switchbacks has to be the one. Like I'm gonna, this has to be the end of it. And this is the one section of the race that I had never been before, and so I had no idea what to expect. Finally, make it down to Windsurfer Beach, down to the A station right there. There's a dude in there who's ghastly white, who they have towels around, and like I got my Eagle Scout award, and like I'm looking at this dude like, do I need to administer first aid right now? Because I think this guy's dying, and I didn't know that was a thing up here doing this stuff. Like we're just
Yep.
running, right? And he was wrecked, and I was like, and then it becomes a possibility. Like if it can happen to him, it can happen to me. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I better start taking this seriously. So that aid station was amazing. Every aid station you hear about on races where you're just like, man, they treat them like royalty. Dude, I walked in there, and they immediately sat me down, and Sean Franzen was in there, and that guy is just a local supporting hero, dude. He is awesome. He's like, hey, dude,
Amazing.
um, he's throwing ice packs on me, and they've got cold towels, and they fill up my soft flasks for me. And he's like, do you want some watermelon? And I was like, you guys have that? And like, I've liked watermelon just fine my whole life, right? But this thing had a halo around it, dude. I'm like, this is awesome, dude. And I must have put down half a watermelon in there. And then one dude's
Yeah.
like, do you want a popsicle? And I was like, yeah, I want a popsicle. And he's like, dude, we got Pace's popsicles. And I'm like, do you have a green Pace popsicle? And like, I'm like 7 years old at field day at school again. And
Mhm.
you got a green Pace's popsicle? And then he goes, do you want me to pack your hat full of ice? I'm like, this is awesome. I could do this forever. If this is what we're dealing with, okay, because they're like, you've got, what is it, like 3, 4, 5 miles from that point to the.
4 miles.
Okay,
Yep,
so it's
4
4
miles.
miles. And I'm like, dude, that's like a little over a 5K. I can totally do this, dude. I've got my hat full of ice. I've got my watermelon. I've got my green paste popsicle. And I'm like, let's go, dude. So I walk out, dude, and I'm so happy, dude. And I cross the street right there and I get on the trail and the sun is just pounding right there, right? So my hat's on backwards and I was like, all right, I need to flip this around to shade this. So I grab my hat and I go to turn it around, not thinking, and a whole hat full of ice just falls down, goes
Oh,
everywhere, right? And
mm,
and I do exactly that, and I went no, and I go to grab the ice and I drop my Pace's popsicle. Okay,
oh,
so I no longer have a hat full of ice. I no longer, and it's in just straight dirt, dude. Like there's no coming back from this. You can't even wash this off in the lake right there, dude. I'm like, no. And so like I'm looking back at the aid station. I'm like, I could go back, and then I'm looking forward, and I'm like, just finish this dang thing, dude. Just. So I'm just moping for probably a good half a mile. And in fact, Jenny and I ran side by, so that's where I met Jenny, your guest last week, dude. And she was so wonderful, man. She was great, such an amazing attitude, and it was so good talking
mhm,
with her. And finished the thing out. And by the time I finished, I had no appetite. They had those amazing pulled pork sandwiches at the finish
yep.
line. Couldn't eat, dude. I'm looking at this. It smells so amazing, dude. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's all I want is to go mac this stuff, and couldn't. But anyway,
I just wanna emphasize just, like, what I saw of you out there. I remember seeing you multiple times, and I thought to myself, "This guy looks strong." And you can say all day that I'm the guy that's nice to everybody, but dude, you were reciprocating it. You were like, "Hey, man, you're doing awesome. We're having a great day." And me and you're, like, high-fiving each other every time we see each other. And I'm like, "I don't know who this dude is, but I think we're, like, best friends now." I like this. Like, this guy is so positive, so good. And I remember thinking, like, if someone can be this positive on this race, like, he's got the right mentality to be, an ultra runner. Like, he's doing it right. And like you said, it is screaming hot. Just a hot race, especially those last, as you're coming down the switchbacks and all that. And it's funny because you, me, Jenny, Eric Sutterfield, we've all talked about, and I don't want to, I know who it is. I won't say his name. I know who is in that aid station that was like ghost white, just a sad situation, right? And again, not sad. I don't know if that's the right thing. It's just sometimes you
it was
lose control
scary.
of your nutrition. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was scary for us. Like it was scary for us because it made running and like you could die really like realistic. And I know Sutterfield actually was able to finish the race with him. He got up and he eventually got through, but this guy was
Nice.
pounding it out like he was killing it on the race, but then just started tanking really bad. And like you said, I mean, for you, I know you're like, I need to figure out my hydration, nutrition. You're like, I think I got to do 300 calories, which honestly, it's better than not knowing what to do at all. You're like, I guess I'll just do something and hope for the best result. And I'm not suggesting that's the right approach either. But what I will say is at least it's something because I think sometimes people are like, well, I'm just going to go and let's hope for the best. Let's see what happens. But it was so cool to see you. And I remember when I came through the finish line, dude, you were like the second person. Jamie McDonald was there first. She came up and gave me a big hug, high fived me. But you were like the second person to come up. You're like, bro, you did so good. And I was like, and I remember being like, who are you? And like, that's when we got to know each other. I was like, who are you? Because dude, you were like the coolest guy out there. And that's when I found out you were like, no, I'm more into like MMA. I've kind of liked running throughout my life, but I'm kind of loving this trail scene. Like this trail scene's like, this is fun. And I remember you being like, if this is how trail running is, like, I want to get into it because there's just so many kind people. And I was like, bro, this is exactly what it's all about. Like, it is so fun. And so I remember after that, I went home, we followed each other on like social media. And then just since then, like we have just known each other. We, always rooting you on, whether that's on Strava, whether that's on your social media. It's just been really cool to see a lot of what you've been doing. I want to jump to two experiences in particular really quickly. I know we're getting there on time, but I want to touch on one in particular, and that was the Antelope Island 50 miler. And I was there, I was doing the 100 miler,
I
and I
wasn't.
was sad. I know you weren't, but you're a day after me. 'Cause I remember being excited because I knew I would see you. I was like, "Oh, I'll see Dustin out here." And I remember when I didn't see you, I understood. I was like, life happens. I guess something he wasn't able to do. But what happened, dude? What happened with that race?
Yeah. Okay. So our caboose, who's almost 4, has some just this like cornucopia of like superhero medical issues, right? And so rare, just such unique situations, right? And there's like, oh man, there's such little information on it, and we're just like, the combination that she has is the odds are just like astronomical that she ended up with like this combo of stuff, and it's just made this last 4 years just the craziest learning experience, and it has made the world's most amazing little almost 4-year-old, right? Like she's
Yeah.
just incredible. Like without these challenges, without this stuff, she wouldn't be who she is today, and she is just absolutely one of my heroes, dude. And so the next step in the racing thing, I was like, okay, let's sign up for a 50, and so signed up for the Antelope Island 50 miler trail race. The week of, um, I'm packing my drop bags, right? I'm getting those together, and I get a call. My wife is at a doctor's appointment with her, with our little one, and she goes, "We need to go down to primaries right now. They're expecting us in the ER." And so packing those drop bags, and turned around and went and packed all of our bags, and had to jet down there because they had found blood clots in our little one. And so, and the crazy thing about this is that you can't see blood clots, right?
Yeah.
But my wife had a feeling. There was something going on. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of information with the combo of things that our little one is dealing with, and so it's not like you can like Google these symptoms. And so my wife was like, I have a feeling there's something going on here, and I think this is it. And so was at a doctor's appointment and said, hey, there's something I'm concerned about. And they were like, oh no, I'm sure it's, blah, blah, blah. And she said, no, I need you to pursue this right now. And they said, okay, I guess we're pursuing this right now. And so I went down to get an ultrasound and found blood clots on the back of her leg, right where my wife thought they were. And to this day, like if my little daughter is a superhero, it is 100% because of her mom. Because like how she was able to do this, this is one of those things, and I'll just never understand fully how this it was just incredible. So anyway, we pack everything up and we jet down to primaries, which just thank goodness for that place, man. That place is incredible. We've spent a lot of time down there, even before this, but we jet down there, go to the emergent into the ER there, and they begin the process of taking care of the blood clots in my then 2-year-old. So she's 2 at the time, and those are words you never think that you're gonna put together, right? Is
Yeah.
blood clots in my 2-year-old, right? And she's already on a bunch of really weird medication, just crazy medication. One of the medications that she's on, she's one of 700 people in the world. Okay, my poor wife, man, her other full-time job is battling insurance and doctors and just pushing. She is the absolute champion advocate for our little one, and God help whoever gets in her way. And I'm so thankful. I mean, we say a lot. This little one absolutely landed in the right nest. And again, that is very much because of her mother. So anyway, so we had to stay at primaries for some days. Um, the morning of the race comes, and I don't think I slept much that entire time, but I watched the sun come up through the hospital window and looked down, and was kind of counting down. I knew that it was about go time for the 50 milers. And I don't like to say good luck, but I like to say give them hell. I feel like good luck takes away from any kind of preparation that anybody's done, but Give 'em Hell seems a little bit more on the offense rather than like, I sure hope everything goes well. So
Mhm.
anyway, I'm looking out the window, I'm watching the sun come up, I'm looking at my watch and time's ticking down and it hits, 6 or 7 or whenever it was. And I just kind of whispered, Give 'em hell, guys. And that was that. Up until that point, it was just kind of like this bobbing little question mark in the back of my head. Like, you've got this race. You've got this race. I'm like, no, I don't, dude. Like the race is done. This is more important. Like this is priority only at this point. And so yeah, the race was done. Like it just wasn't on the radar anymore. The races will come
Yeah.
and go, but I need my 2-year-old to be dialed.
Yeah.
And my wife was so sweet about it. Oh my gosh, dude, she reaches over and grabs my hand. She's laying there in the hospital bed with our daughter and just grabs my hand. She's like, "I'm so sorry." And I said, "Absolutely not. Thank you so much, but like no need to be sorry." They get Avon dialed in and everything's taken care of, thank goodness. And they give us this one medication that now she's on this blood thinner that you need to take home. We're like, oh wow, again, that's never anything you think a 2-year-old's gonna be on. We were like, okay, how long do we need to take this? Is like, a week, 2 weeks, and they said forever. This is a forever thing. And we went, oh, it's
Mhm.
like that. Okay. Oh, add one more thing into the superhero equation. And so anyway, we get home and I come inside and I'm looking at my drop bags and everything's still packed. And I kind of looked over at the family and they kind of looked over at me and I was like, "Do you mind? You good if I and they're like, "Nope, do your thing. Like we're dialed. Go do your thing." I was like, "Okay." So got up early the next morning, drove out to the island. It was important to me to do the race as close to where everybody else had to. I don't want to just run 50 miles just for the sake of 50 miles. I want to go through the same hell that everybody else had to go. It was like it was slightly raining when I got there, and it looked like
Mhm.
Silent Hill. It was so creepy. And Jim
Mhm.
still had the tent set up, but there's nobody there. It was so creepy. I drove around to the White Rock parking lot and I figured I could go up over the fence line right there and then so I was just adding like an additional mile on to where the starting line was and then went the exact same route that everybody else did. And so I had to pack out everything that I would need because the first stretch was like 28 miles. So
Yeah.
no drop bags, no aid stations, no whatever. Packed out everything. I had like 7 pounds of liquid on me or something like that. Like all the nutrition that I would need, layers because it's snowing and then raining and windy and whatever. So did the first 28, came back and my wife, our middle kiddo, our caboose, and my parents are all at my truck and they've got cool signs and they're like, "Go Dad!" And so it was so good.
Wow.
So I was able to swap everything out, refill everything, and then go hit the last 22 miles where all the elevation is. And but yeah, dude, went and did it. And I look back on that experience and it was tough, but compared to what I had just watched my 2-year-old go through for the week before that, it felt like nothing. And I think it's kind of jarred my race expectations and experience for the future because I feel like I'm going to go into that with that same attitude, but I feel like it's going to absolutely kick my butt instead. Be like, no, you had much more like driving you back then than
Mhm.
what you do now. Anyway, Jim, the race director, sent me my mug because I had finished the course. That is my most cherished race medal, is that ceramic coffee mug. 'Cause,
Dude,
so yeah, so finished it.
yeah. Dude, I just wanna say, for all of us in the running community, we had heard, kind of what had happened with you, and then all of a sudden to see you go out and you basically do a self-supported 50 miler on the island, you knock it out. You like you I don't remember what your time was, but I remember being like, that was like insanely fast too for being self-supported. Usually when it's self-supported, you take a little bit more time because you're a little more conservative with your energy and you don't want to, but you go out, you bust out a 50 miler and you do it after everybody's gone. There's nobody there. It's just you by yourself. And I mean, like you said, your family's there, your parents come, your kids come, that's awesome. But there's no aid stations for you. There's no and you go out and you do this. Dude, I remember being so proud of you, so inspired. I was like, Dustin just went and did something epic. And when I say this, I mean it. Like, we were all talking about you for a long time about that because, like, yes, like, I've run hundreds. I can go whatever, right? I did the 100 the day before, but I had crew with me. I have aid at every aid station. Yeah, it's still impressive. Whatever. It is what it is. But for you to do this by yourself and everything you did with it, just wow, dude. Just like super wow. Like, so, so cool. So
Thank you.
we've talked about all this running stuff, all these races you've done. I know if you're listening right and listeners are hearing this, you know, if you haven't figured out his why yet, we'll have him just tell it. But dude, why do you do all this, man? Why do you even continue to do all this? Obviously, you've said it so many times throughout this whole conversation in many different ways and many different forms. But why do you do this, man? Why do you continue to slug along and just own the trails, own the roads, do this? Because before we wrap up, I want to talk about what you've been doing lately. But why do you do this, man? Why is this? Why is it what it is to you?
Personally, I feel like I'm living on borrowed time,
Sure.
and I want to make the most out of it. I know that time is finite. One of my go-to sayings is, "One day I won't be able to do this, but today I can, and so I will." And when that day comes, I don't want to look back on this with any kind of regrets. I don't want to look back and be like, "You should have gone on that run, but you didn't."
Yeah.
As far as I touched earlier on things that I would do to kind of cope with life that were so negative between family and work, I have to be on point constantly, right? And some of these things are so daunting. It's really easy to let my head go with it,
Mhm.
and it would be really easy just to throw in the towel. And those voices pop up a lot during the week. And when I go do what I do on Sundays, if I can go do that, it makes everything else not seem so daunting. Everything seems a lot more manageable. And I've got people counting on me, and I can't let them down. And I feel so bad because like I wish this stuff, made me not so grumpy all the time. I wish this stuff would just help me be a little calmer. But I feel like everything I've ever done in my life it kind of has a jet engine behind it. Like we don't half-ass anything, we full-ass everything. But I think there's a punk rock level to it too. I feel like as an adolescent, you've got people saying don't do stuff, and then you're like, well, I'll show you, and I'll do it anyway. You know what I mean? And then now
Yeah.
in my late 40s, I feel like I've got, when I'm on a long run on Sunday and I've got my body and my mind telling me like you should stop, you should turn around, you should go home, you can't do this or whatever. It's like I feel like I'm still raging against the machine, but now I'm the machine. Like, so I think that's one of the biggest parts of the answer that I can give you is that there's little relief in sight. And so it's one of those things where like the cavalry ain't coming. And so I
Mhm.
got to be there. I have things that I need to take care of. And sometimes it's too much. But if I can go do this stuff, then I can turn around and go, look what you just did. You can handle anything right now. And it drives me through to the next week. And so instead of getting schmammered all weekend long and then rolling back up and having another week like that, I feel like I'm fueling emotionally and morally a little more properly than I have in the past.
I love it, man. I'm proud of you, and I know I speak for so many people in this community when I say we're proud of you. You're an inspiration, you're a motivation to so many of us because you're genuine, and I think we all know that. You're just a kind person and you mean well. And it's funny how when I talk to so many people in this community about those who have a significant impact. You're one of them, man. The main reason why I started this podcast is we all have a story. Every one of us has a story. Again, and then we talked about this before we started today, me and you, but everybody has a story. And yes, you can listen to elites and you can listen to the stuff that's just, it's not us, man. It's not me and you. It's not Laquita and Kirk. It's not Eric Sutterfield. It's not Tim Cotterill. That's not us, man. We're not going to be that because we're parents, we're work our 9 to 5, we've got responsibilities, we got all this stuff, man. But to hear these stories from people like you, from Jenny, to hear from Micah, from these people that we have on, it's cool because it just tells us deep like this. It not only just a deeper purpose, but it tells about you. It gives so much more about who you are as an individual. And it's inspiring because we have this story, all of us do. And I'm excited to continue to just let people hear these stories because there's someone out there that needs to hear this. They're getting to the end of this podcast right now and they've heard your story. And I promise you, and they might reach out to you or they're going to reach out to me and they're going to say, I needed to hear Dustin's story. That was important to me. Anyways, dude, I just appreciate you being honest. I appreciate you telling us you. I know sometimes it's hard. It's hard for people to hear these types of stories. It may be difficult, but I love that you just face it. And you're like, it's me who I am. It's what I've been through. It's what I've done. I can't hide from it. So I'm going to accept it and I'm going to continue to move forward and I'm going to try to be the very best version of myself. And I dare say, dude, I'll just end with this I'll get off my soapbox after this, but dude, what an inspiration you are to your kids. I know your daughter is your superhero and she is so much to you, but dude, I can assure you, you're a lot to her. And I know one day she'll look at you and be like, my dad is my superhero. That's my guess. That's just my humble guess. So
Thank you.
you're good.
Thank you, my
Dude,
man.
you're a good man. You really are.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Yeah. As we wrap up here, as we get to kind of the finish line here. So what's the future look like for you?
I go running once a week. I go running every Sunday, and I will continue to do that. I'm thankful to be able to do that, and I know it's crazy, but I love it. It's it's hands down my favorite addiction.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, I'm gonna keep doing that. I love races, but I do those kind of as they come when one's offered up if something comes available. I don't get a whole lot of time. Sunday is my running day, and that's time away from my family, and so races kind of take away from even more of that, even if it's just a couple hours. And so I'm thankful that I have my run that I get to go do every Sunday, and so I would really like to do a 100 miler before I'm 50. And I got a couple years before that, and so I would really like. I'm just chomping at the bit to be able to do that, and that'll happen when it happens. And I will be so thankful for every step of the way once it's finally time to do that. So yeah, no big major plans, just
Yeah. The weekend stuff, dude. That's what I love. That's what I love about you. You guys, like anyone that's listening, and I know I'll put this in the notes at the end. I'll put this in the show notes and I'll announce it at the end. But if you're not following this dude on Strava, if you're not following him on Instagram, if you're not friends with him on Facebook, like you really should. I'm just gonna throw it out there because it's impressive. It's so cool to see what you're doing. And I'm like, he just goes out and busts out a long run, and he's doing Marathon Plus every Sunday, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is so cool. And that's what I was alluding to earlier when I was like, what is this guy doing? And I remember like, he's gonna get hurt. And then all of a sudden he just keeps doing it. And that's, and kind of playing off of your comment, dude, the moment you do 100, you're gonna crush it. You're gonna do absolutely insane. It's gonna be insane to see what you do because you have the mindset, you have the attitude, you have the dedication, the commitment. It's just gonna be crazy. And I remember I mentioned that to you in the past. I was like, bro, if you ever want to do 100, I know you're gonna do amazing. That you've got the base, like you can do it. So, dude, the day you do it, I want to be there to help, whatever that
Oh
is.
yeah,
Whether
dude.
that's me helping you with a plan, whether that's me helping you at the crew at aid stations, pacing you, bro, I want to be there. So the day you say you do it, I'm in. Like, know you've got someone that wants to be there to be a part of it.
Dude, thank you, man. And I thank you. And I have the raddest Voltron corner. Like I have such like amazing people that when it's that time, like that's gonna be such a fun experience just because of the people that like I am dragging along with that. Like I've thought about that a lot before. Like I should just go out and do this solo and just, do the thing. I'm like, no, dude, like this has been a journey and you haven't done this alone, man. There are a few really key people that I hold very dear to my heart. And I want you guys to experience that with me. And I want to help you guys to accomplish your goals however possible. So thank you, dude. And
Yeah,
you will
that's
definitely
all.
be there.
Yeah, I will, and I mean that for sure. I seriously mean it. It would be an honor because I just know you're gonna crush it. It's gonna be epic. So, well, let's as I've done with every one of my guests, let's jump to the lightning round. You ready for this?
Yes, yes.
Let's jump to the lightning round. I'll throw 4 or 5 questions at you, and then we'll get this wrapped up for the night. First lightning round question: what is your favorite race distance? And I know again, maybe you don't do a whole lot of races anymore, but what is your favorite race distance that you've done?
It's 28 miles. It's not a
Not
race. It's because I've only done a handful of races, and so like the majority of my stuff is just the Sunday long run. And there
yeah,
is something about when I hit, because it's the Sunday long run, like you know how long they
yeah.
are, and there is something about that 28 that just like feels so. I love that. I love that. So I don't know why, but it's 28 miles.
I love it. No, I know it is. I knew exactly what your answer was gonna be before you said it. I was like, "He's gonna say 28," which is not a race distance, again, as
It's
everyone
not, dude.
knows,
It's not a marathon. It's
but
not quite a 50, but
dude, it's just cool, so I love it. This one might be a hard one for you because I know you do both road or trail.
road to trail because I discovered I think it was last summer that like if I go drive to Benny, if I go drive to a trailhead, that's time that I could be running. And so
I
because
love
I've
it.
got so I leave my front door to go do these long runs. And so I've just kind of like worked out different routes. And
Mhm.
so dude, that's a very honest answer is
I know
road
it is
to
with you.
trail. Like one of them that I do is it's like between 6 and 10 miles of surface streets up to the trailhead, and then I'll go hit the elevation from there and go do like the last 20 miles or whatever, probably like 10 miles and then another 10 miles home on the surface streets. But after you do those in the morning, like by the time you hit trail, like you're so thankful for trail, like doing like 6 to 10 miles on the surface streets. By the time you hit the trail, you're like, oh, this is great, dude. I'm so happy to be here. So yeah,
That's
genuine
awesome.
answer, dude. Road to trail.
100% know that about you as well. And I was going to say, again, this goes back to what I was saying about Strava with him. If you are not following him on Strava, go follow him on Strava. It's insane to see what he does. I'm like, he does half of this run or more on road, and then he's like on trails, like climbing some freaking peak. And then he like, anyways, I'm just like, what is this guy doing? It's so because people are either one way or the other usually on a run. And I'm
Yeah,
like, he combines both of them. It's just epic. So that's awesome. Morning or evening runs?
primarily morning. I like getting
Nice.
back and being able to spend time with the family, and but there is something like, especially in the summertime, like I'll go knock out like a midweek like halfie or whatever, and
Yeah.
like I really like the dark.
Nice.
There's something about the dark that like whether it's early in the morning or late at night, like I love it.
Dude, you know the craziest thing? I'm gonna give away one of my secrets that I have not told many people. I'm exactly the same way. I
Yeah.
love being in the dark. I many people know me, they're like, "He's a freaking vampire," and I'm like, "There is some truth to that." I love being in the dark. There is something magical about it with running, so I love that you like it as well. I think me and you may be some of the only 2 people that feel that way, but absolutely epic. I think my favorite runs I've ever had have always been in the dark. So love that you love it too, dude. That's super cool.
That's
And
awesome.
like
Thanks
you,
for sharing that,
I
man.
pref- yeah, I prefer to be early in the morning, but I have done some epic midnight, 1 o'clock. I mean, obviously in my hundreds, that's happened. But I tell you, that's when the magic happens usually. So that's awesome. Next question. Favorite post run or race meal? What do you like to eat after you've ran a race or a long run?
All of it, everything, dude. I I
Love
get home and just like I make sure to get the important stuff in so I can do this the next week. Get the protein shake and the creatine and like get all that dialed in. And then it's just everything after that, man. Dude, I
That's
live
awesome.
on a like trail mix from Costco. Oh my gosh, I put down like one of those containers a week. I swear, dude. I'm always eating, dude.
Yep.
I absolutely have like that's a can't even call it a guilty pleasure, man. I just eat all the time. I love it.
Yeah. Well,
So
you almost have to, right? You almost have to
specifics,
in this
yeah, yeah,
crazy
yeah, dude.
sport that we love. So,
I usually eat like half a pizza before a race, and I usually eat the second half when I get home. But yeah, that or like burritos or my wife's enchiladas or lasagna, like dude, all of it.
that's awesome. My favorite post-run meal, it depend or post-race meal is I love personally to do a protein shake. I
Mhm.
love, especially after 100, all I want it's really hard for me to eat food, and I know this is really wrong, and I've gotten flack from many people, about this, but I struggle to eat solid food after 100 milers. So the best thing I can do is get a protein shake in me. I love to put some ice, some of that chewable ice in there. It just tastes so good and it's just great for me. So that is my favorite thing to do post race. But yeah, I love a good hamburger as well, or some pizza. I think I've said multiple times, I can almost eat a whole pizza by myself after a race. So yeah, epic. All right, dude, last lightning round question for you. Music, podcasts, or silence on your runs?
Absolutely music, unless there's water around.
Yeah.
If there's creek, river, like if there's any kind of water, I'll hit pause. And but yeah, primarily music, dude. I don't really do podcasts. I can
Yeah.
do audiobooks, but it's got to be kind of light. And there's so much going on in the there's 5 computers in my head that are processing all at the same time. And I'll miss an entire episode of a podcast or an audiobook or whatever. So it's primarily music, dude. I'm very music
Yeah.
driven.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. I hear you. I'm the same way. I struggled to do like an audiobook or a podcast. I will miss so much of it. So that's awesome about music. Well, cool, dude. Well, I just want to wrap up by again telling you, dude, thank you so much. Your why. I know usually I always end by asking people if there's anything else about your why, but dude, you've done such an eloquent job of sharing this with us. I'm grateful to have had you on. I think this episode is going to be absolute money for so many people out there. You're just a good person. If people want to follow you, are you cool with people following you on like Strava, Instagram, Facebook, that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Well,
Strava and Instagram are probably the best bets.
I will throw that in the show notes, kind of your tag and the links to it. But dude, thank you so much. Thank you for being, willing to be on this podcast with me today. And it's been an honor, dude, to have you on here. So thank you so much.
Dude, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for everything that you do for the community, with your race training groups, with the stoke that you give out on just to everybody. You and Tim are just absolute amazing cheerleaders who you promote and just help so many people, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for everything that you do for the running community, as a team, as individuals. And thank you for this podcast, dude. You are really helping people with this, and I'm so excited to hear more episodes on this. And thank you for having me on, man. It's been an honor.
Well, awesome, dude. Thank you for your kind words. That really means a lot. And it's just fun, man. There's just so many good people out there. There's, no matter what's going on in the world and what maybe leaders of our world are saying, you know what? There's still a lot of good. And there's a ton of good out there, and we can be good people and be examples of that. And that's the goal. That's definitely the goal always. So dude, thank you so
I
much.
love that. I love that. If they're not gonna do it, we'll do it.
We will do it, dude. We will do it. So, dude, thank you so much again for being on on this episode. Hey, runner. Thanks for hanging out with me today on Reimagine Running. I'm grateful you're here and a part of this great podcast. I just want to remind you, if you ever feel stuck, unsure, or just want someone in your corner, I do offer coaching for runners at any distance. Whether you're starting out with the 5K, or you're chasing some crazy big goals and dreams like the marathon or the 100 miler, I'd love to help you. Please reach out, and I'd be happy to set up a time to go over options and plans and goals with you. Well, until next time, take care of yourself, trust the process, stay disciplined, and keep chasing that why.